is one of my teaching videos, and I say welcome. Today we're going to talk about Marcionites. If you remember when I introduced the Ebionites last time, I reminded you how diverse early Christianity was. Many different groups believing many different things. And so as we go along, we're looking at a number of those groups. So the Marcionites probably actually began in the year 144 of the Common Era, when a man named Marcion was excommunicated from the church. His father was a bishop, and Marcion had been developing some beliefs, and when he shared them, actually his father is the one who excommunicated him. So he went from there to the city of Rome, and he spent 5 years in study, and he wrote a work called Antithesis, where he compared the God of the Old Testament with the teachings of Jesus found in the New Testament, the Christian writings about God. And he came to the conclusion that the God of the Old Testament and the teachings of Jesus were not compatible. Therefore, they were two different gods. He then, after writing his work, shared it with the Christians in Rome, but they didn't accept them either. And so his movement began to take shape as he continued teaching and writing and established churches around the area. So what were some of his teachings beside the fact that there were two gods? He saw the God of the Old Testament as a God of judgment, the mean God who had actually created this world. The God of Jesus in the New Testament was unknown to the Jewish people and had not had interaction with humanity. But because he saw the suffering and the prison atmosphere of the human being, he decided to send Jesus to this world to, in fact, rescue people from the God of the Old Testament. The Old Testament God was inferior. He was perhaps even an evil God who had always meant to imprison humans. So this God sends a message through Jesus about the true, higher, one true God of goodness and mercy and peace. Now, because the Old Testament God is creator, Marcionites are very strict about their beliefs about earthly life, and they're very this earth created by this other God is also evil. Our physical life is an evil life to be overcome. Now, there's also another ramification or two from this belief. That is that Jesus is not human. Jesus could not be born with a human body and part of this evil created world. Jesus is therefore sent by the one true God, but he appears to be human, but he is not really. He is spirit in the appearance of humanity, a phantom of humanity. Yet, because he's been sent by this God, his apparent death on the cross is sufficient to save humans from death and from this evil God. So Jesus is only God. The writings of the Old Testament are totally rejected. They have nothing to do with truth. And Marcion taught that the Apostle Paul is the only legitimate apostle. He was the only one who got the teachings of Jesus correctly. And so he established what we'd call a canon, a list of the books that should be read and used for Christians in their worship and in their studies. They included a book similar to the book of Luke, but without any of the infancy dialogue, because God was sending Jesus. Jesus is not really human, born of human parents. So that is missing. In addition, any quotes in the gospel from the Old Testament would have been deleted. Now, we also have in his canon 10 of the letters of Paul, edited editions. He loved Paul, but anything that did not agree with his theology was removed. Now, this was declared a heresy. He was written about several volumes by Tertullian, one of the early church writers. And he was, I think it was entitled Against Marcion. But the movement was quite popular in its day, and up until the 11th century, there are groups of Marcionites in various parts of the Christian kingdom. The idea of a canon then, and also the idea of Jesus being only God, had some effect on the proto-Orthodox Christians, because the idea of establishing a group of scriptures that were appropriate for the church took hold. And later, a couple of centuries later, in fact, there will be a finalization of the 27 books of the New Testament that we now have. And also, this difference between groups like the Ebionites and this group would bring to the forefront a discussion of who Jesus really is. Is Jesus God? Is Jesus human? Is he some combination of the two? This whole issue of Christology is going to have to be decided. And of course, we have the version of the proto-Orthodox eventually becoming the Orthodox version. I'd like to take just a moment to talk about those terms, heresy and orthodoxy, though. From the point of view of everyone, they think their beliefs are orthodox, and those who disagree or have other beliefs, which is what the word heresy means, choice, other beliefs, are wrong. The group in power decided what orthodoxy would be. From the point of view today of the Roman Catholic Church, most of the Protestant teachings are or tend toward heresy. And from the Protestant point of view, they have always declared some of the teachings of the Roman Church and the Greek and Eastern Orthodox churches to be heretical. So I'm using those terms here as historical terms, not as a judgment call on what is right teaching or right belief and what is wrong belief. So I hope that helps to clarify. When I say something is declared orthodox, that does not mean that that's for sure, that's the right thing. No, that is what became orthodox in the history of our church. And the groups that were considered heretical have been eliminated or removed. Again, we don't have any of the writings of Marcion. All of them were destroyed. We only have quotes and from his critics and from other people who mention him or the Marcionites in their writing. You're going to see these beliefs appear, at least some of them, again in the Gnostics, those groups of Christians who came to be called Gnostics, and we'll be looking at them in the future. Well, I hope again that you learned something in this video, something that perhaps you didn't know before. If these do nothing else, they help us to determine what it is that we actually believe and what our beliefs are based on, and be able to defend our beliefs. I also hope that they will help us to understand those who believe differently than we do and why they do, and help to bring peace and unity and understanding among all the branches of Christianity, and beyond that, all of the religions of the world.